Navi Pillay has revealed details of Kofi Annan's attempts to broker peace in Syria. The South African jurist is the former UN High Commissioner on Human Rights. Earlier, she spoke to eNCA's Andrea van Wyk about what it's like working with Annan.
Navi, a very good afternoon to you, and a very sad day to be talking to you. Just your first thoughts upon hearing about the passing of Kofi Annan.
Yes, thank you, eNCA, for focusing on the importance of Kofi Annan and his death today. I was very shocked because we were both scheduled to speak at the UNGA on 30th September, and I saw that he had accepted to speak there, and now he's gone. I worked under him, actually, so he was the Secretary General. I was Under Secretary General when I was a judge on the Rwanda Tribunal. I must say the history of it was that he was the head of peacekeeping, and he was blamed and faulted for not doing enough to protect against the Rwandan genocide. He could have, but he did not. And so he tried to make up for that by throwing his weight and supporting international criminal justice. So he was a stalwart in supporting the tribunal and its judicial work, which rendered justice for Rwandan victims. And when he visited the tribunal and when he visited Rwanda, he was welcomed as a hero. I think we should celebrate him as a hero from Africa. We'll remember him for his integrity and for his courage. His was a highly political role as Secretary General. I'm aware of how much political pressure is put on the Secretary General, particularly by the United States, that always reminds the Secretary General and all of us who work there that they fund the major portion of the United States budget and that we have to do their bidding. And this is the kind of pressure he resisted, and we respect him for that because he upheld the rule of law and the principles that the United Nations stands for. I met him as well many times in Geneva because that's where his foundation is based. I met him and his wife Nana, and I'm really deeply sorry because she was such a devoted partner to him. I went to their home where they hosted us for dinner. But Kofi Annan, as usual, turned it into a serious discussion. He almost shared the dinner conversation with several of us UN leaders. And over there, he expressed his disappointment because he had been appointed to negotiate a settlement of peace in Syria. It was the height of the Syrian conflict. People were being killed. And he told us that the very states who had appointed him, meaning the United States, Russia, European states, were all actually working in the background to make sure that he doesn't succeed. So he was very disillusioned by this hypocrisy. But what struck me is how he still continued during his retirement to play a role towards world peace.
Navi, perhaps you can just also talk to us about the kind of person that he was, having known him on such a personal level.
You know, he was quiet-spoken, very gentle, and all his statements were made in that flat voice, short sentences, which was highly appreciated. So he didn't lecture or talk down to anybody. He struck me always as a caring person. I'm not saying we always agreed on issues. There were many matters that I brought to his attention as in my capacity as Chief Justice of the Rwanda Tribunal. And he could have taken the position that he didn't like the UN as an institution to be criticized, but he didn't. He gave me a hearing and he tried to do something to remedy the situation. So at a working level, I found that he's a person that I respected. I met him in Stockholm where we both made speeches, and his remarks were so well received. once again because of this quiet, caring voice of his. At one time, he spoke to me and commended me because I was the only one who had made a statement of concern over the killing of Osama bin Laden by the Obama administration. The previous Secretary General had said justice had been done, and Kofi Annan said to me, how can you call that justice? I had, not me, but how could the Secretary General have called it justice? And I then asked for full disclosure because I said even the UN has to adopt human rights safeguards in dealing with terrorism. So that was one of the few conversations where once again he was a role model who reinforced in us unrelenting respect for values and principles.
And then just finally, we've had quite a number of people talk to us about him and his legacy for the African continent. What are your thoughts?
I think we should celebrate him with great pride and joy because he was from Africa. Well, we did have the Egyptian Boutros Ghali, but Kofi Annan was one of the few who had 2 terms, so he enjoyed the trust of everyone, including Africa, which is not an easy continent to represent internationally because we're so divided. But he comes with true African values. He never pretended otherwise. He was welcomed everywhere. I still remember in Kofi Annan where all the children lined up in a choir to welcome him and embraced his name. Some of the buses in Tanzania were named Kofi Annan as well. So he's a name and a figure of stature, and I hope that by reputation he will continue to be the leader who emerged from Africa.
That's former United Nations High Commissioner on Human Rights, Navi Pillay. Thank you very much for your time. She, of course, worked with Kofi Annan.